In the United States, there are 8 million children who are illiterate in our school system. How does this play out on society? I was speaking to a community event organizer who held a job fair with an opportunity from all the people in the community to come in and to apply for jobs in this economic times. 40% of the applicants couldn't read the job application. In fact, 27 million people in America cannot read well enough to fill out a job application or to function in society. Because of this dilemma, I realized we needed someone who was an expert in this area. And so I brought in Steve Walle from Believe It Baby Publishing, who is a children's literacy expert. Steve, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Tony.
Great. So what got you into children's literacy?
I had children. That got me into it. But initially, it was alarming for me as a student, prospective teacher, elementary teacher, and I had to do a class called clinical observation where I had to go out and observe all these different schools. And I noticed that one of the schools that all these children were struggling to read. And I made a promise to myself that I would learn everything I could about reading so that someday when I had my own children, I would be able to teach them how to read and ensure that they could read, and then as well be a successful teacher and make sure that my own students could read well.
Okay. So what happened when you had children?
Well, when I had children, as soon as we found out that we were expecting, I had read about the value of even reading while in the womb. I'm not sure if you've heard about that. So I began reading books in the womb when my baby was in the womb, and we read a lot of rhyming books, a lot of those to teach the patterns and rhythms of language. And so that's really where we started with our first child, was in the womb.
Okay.
And from there, when she was born, well, I'll back up a second. While I was going to school, I had also learned about the importance of what they call the alphabetic principle, or the ability to recognize and identify letters.
Okay.
And then secondly, I had learned about the importance of phonemic awareness, which once again is the ability to recognize word patterns and rhyming sounds. And so very early on, I mean, she's just a few days old, and actually she was born 9 weeks premature, so more susceptible to learning disabilities altogether, just for that reason alone. And so I made sure to build that into my daily routine, to read to her. And so we read many books in our home that dealt with rhyming. So Dr. Seuss was a favorite in our household. Okay. And so we read those books and developed a really high degree of phonemic awareness, or the ability to recognize those rhyming sounds and word patterns with her. And I also read this book here, the alphabet book by P.T. Eastman, and just showed her daily the letters. And by one, she could actually identify all of the letters on sight.
Really? We have a clip of that, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's watch the clip.
H. What's that one over there? What's this one? I. What's this one? J. What about this one? What's that?
Dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
Cow. Cow. Cow.
What's a cow say?
Moo. Zoo. Spider. Elephant. Fox. Tiger. Bear. Fish. Pig. Sea turtle. Bird.
There you go.
Otter.
Otter.
Tropical bird.
Tropical bird.
Dog. Elephant has big ears.
All right, you read it.
That was amazing. I mean, not only to see her looking at the letters and being able to identify the letters at one, but how old was she when she began to read the words?
Well, we had started with that, and then when she was about 2.5 years old, I was at the public library and I came across a book that was written in the 1960s. And it was about teaching young children how to read. And I read the book and I was really excited when I got home, and I told my wife about this, and she was very skeptical, very analytical woman, and she didn't believe that it would work. And so I tried it out, and I actually used several animal words. We started with animals because my daughter, who was a toddler, 2.5, had a high interest in animals. And so I used these different animal pictures and animal words, and by the first week she read 17 words as a 2.5-year-old, and a few months later, right around her 3rd birthday, she was reading sentences and short books.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so if I were watching this, the first thing that would be going through my mind is, your kid's probably just smart. Of course your kid's going to read. You're a teacher, your kid just has the right gene pool. I mean, is this something you can replicate with other kids?
Absolutely. This is something that can be replicated with any child. And people often ask, is this, more nature or nurture? And I believe that it's nurturing the natural genius of every child.
Okay.
We are born linguistic geniuses, the ability to acquire language, any language that we're around, that we're immersed in. And one of the things is that we have to remember is that reading is a language. It's simply written language. And so we need to immerse our children in written language and expose them to written language just as we do spoken language without even thinking twice about it.
Okay, so let's let the cat out of the bag. How does this work? Show me how this works.
Well, it begins, as I mentioned, with developing the phonemic awareness. So we read several books that deal with rhyming sounds. So Dr. Seuss, once again, is a favorite in our home. So many books like Hop on Pop, One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish.
Sure.
So you remember some of these?
Absolutely,
Okay?
absolutely.
So we want to develop that. So that's part of it. So and we do that with simple lap reading. I'm building that into our daily routine. We also want to make sure that they can identify letters, because later we can play games with the letters, like what starts with T. Table starts with T. So we can play word games like that. So that's another component of it. But then the real reading part, where the child begins to learn how to read and where they really get empowered, self-empowered to read for themselves, is when we expose them to written words. And let me back up just one second. If you even think about it, many children, you asked if it's just because they're my children. No. Many children do read. If their parents really think about it, when they go by McDonald's, what do they say?
McDonald's, Golden Arches,
There
McDonald's.
we go. When they say Walmart, I had a friend tell me he was at Walmart, and his little girl looked on the cart and she said, "Daddy, Walmart." And she's telling him, "Dad, I can read if you'll show me the words."